Ms. Hageman, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And I am very honored to serve as the chairman of the Subcommittee on Indian and Insular Affairs. And I want everyone to understand that this isn't the only hearing that we have held on the particular issues that we've been addressing today. The issues that we have discussed, the relationship with our territories as well as the other islands in the entire region, has been at the forefront of our interest throughout the last 8 months as we have been in Congress. We have held several hearings in Washington, D.C., talking about the importance of where you're located, and not only your importance to the security and the geopolitical interests of the United States of America, but to the world at large, because of the risks that we all recognize are posed by China and the Communist Party that runs that country. Minister Odui, since taking office, President Whips has reported publicly on numerous occasions where Chinese ships violate Palau's exclusive economic zones, or EEZ. Some of these violations are Chinese surveying activities. In one recent incident, a Chinese vessel conducted questionable maneuvers over your undersea fiber optic cables. When it comes to the surveying, does Palau have mineral or energy potential off its waters that China may desire to sustain its massive economic and military buildup?
Thank you, Congressman. And yes, you are correct. We believe there are undersea minerals that would be of value economically, and they are surveying. The cable is very evident from the tracking that we see and the requests that they officially make to enter our waters. But the vessels that we see are not made for research. They're made for other purposes. We also see that they are taking steps to name ridges in our waters, we suspect, for a future claim to take possession of some of our northern waters.
Those are highly concerning developments. And through your role as the finance minister, are you able to detail for the committee the significance of these cables for Palau's commerce and what a Chinese threat to these cables would mean for your country?
The cables are very significant to us. Recently, new infrastructure that has really changed the opportunities that are available to Palau for economic growth. We have sought to take advantage of these opportunities and looking at more opportunities in e-commerce, digital government, and other new industries. This is something that we recently found is something that we don't want to lose, as we had a disruption in a cable recently, about a week's worth of interruption, and we were unable to restore full service using satellite backup. So it's very important that we do have that additional cable that is being installed right now, and we hope that that will provide the resiliency that we could rely on to attract further investment to our islands.
Well, that's good to hear. President Whips has also talked about those encroachments as part of a possible retaliation from China for Palau's recognition of Taiwan. Minister Dewey, have you or President Whips identified any other adverse treatment from China based upon your recognition of Taiwan?
I think, in my experience and some of the discussions I've had, are the subtle influences that they try to exert politically. And that is many of the improvements we're trying to make for our people are being resisted locally. Often without a good explanation as to why some of our politicians are not in favor of some of these initiatives, such as minimum wage. And we think that there is a resistance to see improvements that our president is proposing.
Well, and I would note for anyone who's watching, and this is certainly a sentiment I will bring back to my colleagues in Congress as we consider the compact renewals, that when we discuss Chinese political warfare, there are clear-cut examples of China using these tactics to achieve one of its main political goals, which is eliminating Taiwan's diplomatic space. And again, I want to assure the folks who are here and the people who have been so gracious to undergo our questioning and visit with us today about these all-important issues, that you're not forgotten, that the people in Congress really do recognize the important role that you play and that the citizens out here and the islands play in protecting world peace. And so the messages that we have heard today, I think, are very important. We will all be taking them back with us when we go back to Washington, D.C., but I want you to know that you are being heard loud and clear. Thank you so much.
Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Wyoming, Ms. Hageman. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, and again, it's so wonderful to be here. Earlier this summer, as the chairman of the Subcommittee on Indian and Insular Affairs, I was invited to speak at the ceremony for the 79th anniversary of the liberation of Guam in Washington, D.C. And it was a fabulous ceremony. It was, I'm learning more about your culture. I have really enjoyed getting to know your congressional representative. He has done an excellent job of representing your interests and being your voice back in Washington. And Ms. Scambaluri, listening to you talk about what it meant when you saw those soldiers landing on Guam 79 years ago, and you said that this represented for you liberty, democracy, and freedom. And I do think that those are the words that describe what the United States has always aspired to be, not only for all of us who are Americans, but for others around the world, as we have liberated other areas as well, as we have gone through the scourge of things like World War I and World War II. And now we are facing what has been referred to several times today as an existential threat. And we know what that existential threat is, and it is the PRC. It's the Chinese Communist Party. And they have made no bones about what their intent is. In fact, they have been in South Africa most recently talking about their efforts to displace really what for so many of us is embodied in those words, the liberty, democracy, and freedom. And all we need to look at is what has happened in Hong Kong over the last couple of years, the response to COVID-19, the reaction to that particular situation, and we can see what the future would be if they ascend and we descend. And so, again, that is why we are here, and it's why we have been focusing on this issue for the last several months, pretty much since the beginning of the 118th Congress, as a committee, as the Natural Resource Committee, and then as the subcommittee as well. One of the things that has been of great concern to me is related to the PRC's illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, or the IUU, practices in the vicinity of the Pacific Island countries. And Ms. Barnes, just very quickly, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about the impact that that has had on Guam and will continue to have. These actions show that the PRC not only disrespects the sovereignty of these islands, but it is a significant national and international security threat. How has the PRC's IUU fishing impacted the economy of Guam and the livelihood of your citizens?
When you take away from the livelihoods of the community, you take away the very vital strength for them to survive. That threat is real. And we need the support coming from Uncle Sam. I want to share with you, not too long ago in the 35th Guam Legislature Speaker, I did receive a call from the ambassador of China saying that I should advocate for a one China plan. And I said, way above my pay grade, this is not right. We are Americans, and that we are here to peacefully. And if this is a threat, then I think that you've really asked something way above my pay grade. But in all fairness to that, as you see that coming here, and you see what's happening with what they can do without the support from Uncle Sam, then we will then have what Auntie Irene Scambaluri is so afraid to happen to our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren, and that's peace and democracy. So we can't allow that to happen.
Well, then I agree with you, and I can assure you that every one of the people on this panel will be taking that message back to Washington, D.C., describing the interests of Guam and the surrounding islands and why they are so important not only to all of us as American citizens, but again to freedom around the world. Do you have any suggestions on how the United States can increase cooperation and coordination to address these unlawful activities from the PRC?
I think a full collaboration with our brothers and sisters of the Blue Continent is very key and important. I think as we come together as one big Blue Continent and having over 212 million miles, I think we have a big block of people who believe in freedom and democracy. And it starts with bringing all of us together and sharing in the principles and the values and the equipment and the resources that it needs to protect the freedoms that we have today. So
No,
that pure collaboration is strictly, needed.
I just want to say how inspiring it is to sit here and listen to the folks from Guam describe their patriotism and what they're fighting for and what their vision of the future is. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to be able to participate in this. And with that, I yield back.